Jazakullahu Khairun, Maulana Uthman, for that very inspirational talk. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the patience and sabr of Ayyub alayhi salam. In any difficulties or hardships we face in life, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that same sabr and allow us to pass through any trials in a way best pleasing to Him. Next, we have a talk by Mufti Abrar Mirza. Mufti Abrar began his Arabic and Islamic studies at Benedictine University while enrolled in a degree program in information systems. He later enrolled in IIE Elgin, upon which he decided to continue his studies in the religious sciences and helped form the first batch of graduate students from the Alim program. He thus had the good fortune to study under recognized scholars, including the renowned commentator of the Quran and former Shaykh al-Hadith of Darul Uloom Deoband, Maulana Muhammad Naeem, rahimahullah. Mufti Abrar graduated from Benedictine University in 2016 with honors and a degree in information systems. He completed his Alim course in 2007 and thereafter enrolled in Madrasa in Amia in Cape Town, South Africa to specialize in the field of issuing legal verdicts, fatwa. In 2019, Mufti Abrar completed his training under Mufti Ibrahim Desai, who is a world-renowned jurist and expert in Islamic finance. Mufti Abrar currently, he is the founder of the American Fiqh Academy, and he is active in the field of research and issuing legal verdicts. In addition, he serves as an instructor of fiqh and hadith to advanced alim course students in Chicago, and he also trains ulama in the field of issuing legal verdicts. So as we see, Maulana Abrar, our Mufti Abrar, our esteemed guest today, he is someone who has been serving the deen for many, many years, over a decade. And I remember about 10 years ago, I was a high school student in the public schools of Chicago when I had heard about Darul Hikmah, and that was in Westmont, Illinois, so it was about an hour drive for me. And I got some interest in it, I decided to go. And I remember the very first class in Islamic studies that I ever took, it was under Mufti Abrar Mirza. And seeing him, seeing the other ulama, Maulana Bilal, and being in that environment, I had never witnessed that before. And this is something that really, really inspired me. I remember he was teaching Introduction to Hadith Studies, and it was at the bottom floor of Darul Hikmah. This was years ago now, but that was something that really inspired me to be able to study and continue learning the Islamic sciences. It is said about Maulana Anwar Shah Kashmiri that people used to look at Maulana Anwar Shah Kashmiri and they used to understand what the Sunnah is. They used to look at Maulana Anwar Shah Kashmiri and they used to understand what it means to practice the Sunnah. I can say the same thing about Maulana Abrar. We were, studying Shama'il of Imam Tirmidhi last week, and it came to the point where it said that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam kana yadhaku mimma yadhakun. The Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to smile at what other people smiled at. And the teacher, he explained that this was not like he would laugh out loud, LOL. He would not do qahqaha, which is to laugh out loud. But rather, and our teacher, Maulana Ihtiram, may Allah bless him, he gave the example of Mufti Abrar. And he said, that is the sunnah. The way Mufti Abrar smiles, the way he might chuckle, and never will you hear him doing qahqaha. So again, we are blessed to be in the company of such ulama who preserve the sunnah and show us what it means to practice the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept us all. Ameen. Jazakumullahu Khairun.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah الذي هدى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على سيد الرسل وخاتم الأنبياء وعلى آله وصحبه الذين اجتبى أما بعد. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإلى مدين أخاهم شعيبا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره ولا تنقصوا المكيال والميزان إني أراكم بخير وإني أخاف عليكم عذاب يوم محيط ويا قوم أوفوا المكيال والميزان بالقسط ولا تبخسوا الناس أشياءهم ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين بقية الله خير لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين وما أنا عليكم بحفيظ قالوا يا شعيب أصلاتك تأمرك أن نترك ما يعبد آباءنا أو أن نفعل في أموالنا ما نشاء إنك لأنت الحليم الرشيد. Honorable ulama and elders, dear brothers and respected sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending salutations upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I would like to extend my gratitude to the staff of Dawah Salam for inviting me to speak, and for all the volunteers who are helping to make this event logistically possible. Allah ta'ala reward you. And for all of you who are sitting here and paying attention. I can see that, as is with the etiquette of the majlis, that you're sitting here and you're paying attention to me and you're not on your phones. But we're going to do things a bit differently. And I'm going to ask you to actually take your phones out. I'm actually going to ask you, go ahead, it's okay. You can take your phones out. And I want you to go to this page. It's not fundraising, I'm not selling anything. It's okay, you can go. Okay? And it's either slido.com or you can do sli.do.com. And it's going to ask you for a number, okay? A conference number. So enter in the letter G 024. So go to slido.com or sli.do, and then when you get to the page, there'll be a box there. Enter in G, the letter G, 024, and hit join. Okay? You'll get to a page, and then there'll be two tabs at the top, one for questions, one for polls. Just go to the polls tab, and it'll be empty, there'll be nothing there, but that's fine, just stay at that location. It was mentioned that regarding teaching at Darul Hikmah, and I see multiple people here that alhamdulillah took classes with me at Darul Hikmah, and then my students from Darul Iftar are also here as well. And anyone who's taken a class with me know that I take a lot of questions, but I also like to throw out some questions as well. Okay? So I'm going to ask you all a question. Okay? And before I get to the question, I'm going to give you some background. In October of 2001, the US witnessed the largest bankruptcy in its history until that point, of a company that was named by Fortune magazine as America's most innovative company for 6 consecutive years. From 1996 to 2001, Fortune magazine said this was America's most innovative company. But in 2001, it went bankrupt. And along with it, America also saw the dissolution of one of the top 5 accounting and auditing companies in the world. That bankrupt company was Enron. And that accounting company was Arthur Andersen. The company misled investors through shady accounting practices and poor auditing until its eventual bankruptcy, and it became a symbol of corporate greed. Now that you're on that page, you're going to see a poll. And I want you to take a guess, and you can vote. How much money do you think the investors of Enron lost when the company went bankrupt? And I'll give you 30 seconds to vote. Remember, it was the largest bankruptcy in history up to that point. So when it went bankrupt, how much money do you think the investors lost? MashaAllah, about 71 people voted so far. Okay. The answer, many of you have guessed it here, was $74 billion. Think about that. $74 billion. That's no small change. That's how much the investors lost. Enron stock in mid-2000 was $90. It dropped to just about 26 cents within a year and a quarter. From $90 in mid-2000 to 26 cents by the end of 2001. Corporate greed. Right? A person asks, how can someone do that? How can someone do that? You've made people collectively lose $74 billion. How can you do that? Let's take another example. How many of you have heard of Bernie Madoff? Bernie Madoff, right, was a former chairman of NASDAQ in the early 90s and was one of the most respected investors. He managed billions of dollars in investment until the end of 2008, when he confessed to running the largest Ponzi scheme in history for at least 17 years. At least 17 years he ran the scheme. Of course, he wasn't the only one in his fraud. Others helped him, and others suspected something must be wrong because things just didn't make sense. The numbers just didn't make sense. Others suspected something must be wrong, but they didn't bother to report it. Why? Because they were benefiting in the process. It said that the banks where the deposits were made, it said that the banks must have known, that there's no way they couldn't have known. The banks must have known that what is happening here, there's something wrong. But the banks never raised any issue. And why would the banks raise any issue? When they made $500 million from the deposits that were in their banks. So who lost? The investors lost. How much? $17 billion of principal investment. $17 billion of principal investment was lost in this Ponzi scheme. Bernie Madoff, who managed billions of dollars in investments, was sentenced to 150 years in prison. And he went from managing billions of dollars to earning about $40 a month in prison through prison labor. The question is, why did Bernie Madoff do this? Why did he do this? And that's the mind-boggling part. Because when I asked him why did he do this, you know what he said? He said that I had more than enough money to support any of my lifestyles and my family's lifestyle. I didn't need to do this for that. Meaning it wasn't that he needed money to support a certain lifestyle. He had enough money to support whatever lifestyle he wanted and his family's lifestyle. He didn't need the money. Just didn't even need the money. And then you ask, how can someone do that? How can you do that to someone? Finally, a third example, and an especially sour one, because this one had targeted the religious Muslim community here in Chicago specifically. And it was a Sharia investment company run by, outwardly religious people who seemed like they're religiously inclined and were, traditionally inclined and supporting of traditional institutes. They duped the Muslim community, specifically the religious Muslim community who wanted to invest their money in halal options. They targeted them specifically and duped them into their so-called halal investment, which turned out to be a $44 million Ponzi scheme. This one now specific and not just, it wasn't general, this was targeted add the religious Muslim community here. The investors lost collectively $30 million. Right? Many of them their entire life saving. Many of them who had houses paid off, who then took out equity from the houses to invest, and they lost everything. And then the banks lost another $14 million. And again, the question comes up, how can someone do this? And the answer to that question of how can someone do this is that if a person lacks the fear of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they can do that. Right? That fear of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, otherwise known as taqwa. If a person lacks taqwa, doesn't have taqwa, then they can do something of that nature. Right? And that lack of taqwa can lead a person to commit the most heinous of crimes against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and against the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore we see a consistent pattern with all the prophets that when they came to remind people, they came to remind them and they reminded them of having taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? You read Surah Shu'ara, read Surah Shu'ara and you find, right, this is the translation and you can fill in the blanks of the different qawms, the different nations and their prophets. This was their message to all of them. كذبت قوم نوح المرسلين إذ قال لهم أخوهم نوح ألا تتقون إني لكم رسول أمين فاتقوا الله وأطيعون وما أسألكم عليه من أجر إن أجري إلا على رب العالمين. When the people of Nuh rejected the messengers, right, the people of Nuh rejected the messengers when their brother Nuh said to them, do you not fear Allah? Right? Reminded of taqwa, that don't you have taqwa, don't you fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He said, I am an honest messenger for you. So fear Allah and obey me. I do not claim from you any reward from it. My reward is with none but the Lord of the worlds. That was Nuh alayhi salam. The same you find then again from Hud alayhi salam as well. كذبت عاد المرسلين إذ قال لهم أخوهم هود لا تتقون إني لكم رسول أمين فاتقوا الله وأطيعون وما أسألكم من عليه أجر إن أجري إلا على رب العالمين. The same thing that Hud alayhi salam said. كذبت ثمود المرسلين إذ قال لهم أخوهم صالح ألا تتقون إني لكم رسول أمين فاتقوا الله وأطيعون وما أسألكم عليه من أجر إن أجري إلا على رب العالمين. Salih alayhi salam also said the same thing to his qawm of Thamud. كذبت قوم لوط المرسلين إذ قال لهم أخوهم لوط ألا تتقون إني لكم رسول أمين فاتقوا الله وأطيعون وما أسألكم عليه من أجر إن أجري إلا على رب العالمين. Lut alayhi salam also said the same thing to his nation as well. And this was also the same message that Shu'ayb alayhi salam gave to his people as well. كذب أصحاب الأيكة المرسلين إذ قال لهم شعيب ألا تتقون إني لكم رسول أمين فاتقوا الله وأطيعون وما أسألكم عليه من أجر إن أجري إلا على رب العالمين. So Shu'ayb alayhi salam also reminded them of the same thing, of taqwa. And before we get to the other messages that Shu'ayb alayhi salam conveyed to his people, let's get a little background on Shu'ayb alayhi salam. Shu'ayb alayhi salam was known for his great oratory skills. He was a great speaker. Was known as the Khatib al-Anbiya. And he was from the progeny of Madyan, who was a son of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And he was also related to Lut alayhi salam, and then a lot of the Mufassirin mentioned that he was also the father-in-law of Musa alayhi salam as well. In the story of Musa alayhi salam, when he went and saw the two women by the well, and eventually he was hired on the basis of marrying one of them, right? Their father was Shu'ayb alayhi salam. He was also the father-in-law of Musa alayhi salam. That his people, the qawm of Shu'ayb alayhi salam, in the Quran are referred to as in two different ways, as Madyan and as Aika. Right? Madyan was the tribe attributed to Madyan, who was the son of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and then the tribe eventually took the name of Madyan, and then the place where they settled also took the name of Madyan. It's currently in the modern day eastern part of Jordan. And Aika means forest. Okay? Some of the people lived in a forest, and we'll also see regarding some of their punishment in a little bit as well. And some people also mentioned that it was the name of a tree that they used to worship. Okay? And now the Mufassirun, they have differing opinions in terms of whether Madyan and Aika were the same or different. Right? Some have said that these were different people in different settlements, that Shu'ayb alayhi salam was sent first to one of the tribes, and then when they were destroyed, then he was sent to the other one. And that the destruction of the qawm of Madyan was that there was an earthquake, the ground was shook, and then there was the sayha, the screeching scream from Jibreel alayhi salam that then killed all of them. And the punishment of Aika was what the Quran refers to as dhulla. That it was first, there was an intense heat that's almost scorching, was burning people, it was roasting the people, and then eventually they saw a cloud over a forest. So then all the criminals wanted to get out of the heat and go into the shade. So then they all went into the forest, went under the shade, except the clouds did not rain water, they rained down fire and the ground shook, and then those people were destroyed. Some of the Mufassirun mentioned these are two different nations, and they're both destroyed in different ways. Others have said, like Ibn Kathir rahimahullah also prefers this, he mentioned that no, they were the same people. They're just referred to in different ways, but they're the same people. And that on this qawm, three different types of punishment came. That they were not destroyed with one adhab, but they were destroyed by three adhab. First, there was fire from the clouds. Then there was the sayha, the screaming sound. And then thereafter there was the ground shook. And then these three adhabs then destroyed the nation. Now, whether they're the same or different is inconsequential to our discussion here. What we need to take from this, and we need to look at the lessons of why they were destroyed. The tribe of Shu'ayb alayhi salam, they were heedless of both the huququllah and the huququl ibad, the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the rights of the people. It's mentioned about them that they refused Shu'ayb alayhi salam, and they used to sit on entry points of streets, and they terrorized all newcomers, and they would rob them of their belongings, and they would threaten them of worse if they were to believe in Shu'ayb alayhi salam. And they sought to twist the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to misrepresent the religion. It's mentioned in the Quran that تَبْغُونَهَا عِوَجًا, that they wanted to twist the message of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And regarding the huququl ibad, the rights of people, their crime was that they cheated people in financial transactions. They cheated people in financial transactions. إلى مدين أخاهم شعيبا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره قد جاءتكم بينة من ربكم فأوفوا الكيل والميزان ولا تبخسوا الناس أشياءهم ولا تفسدوا في الأرض بعد إصلاحها ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين. That Shu'ayb alayhi salam was sent to the people of Madyan, and he said, "Oh my people, believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't have any other Lord. You don't have any other Lord. You have to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the clear sign has come to you, and be fair in your measurements, and don't cheat people out of what is due to them. Don't cheat people out of what is due to them. Don't cause corruption in the earth." They used to cheat people in their financial transactions by taking on fraudulent measurements. They would measure things, but it wouldn't be the fair measurement. Right? They did fraudulent measurements, and then people would be deprived of getting what was rightfully theirs out of that financial transaction. And this is referred to then as them causing fasad on the earth. And their fasad, their corruption was spiritual, it was financial, and it was physical. And hence Shu'ayb alayhi salam first gave them the da'wah of tawheed. Right? First called them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, said, you don't have any other Lord, so worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then thereafter, he commanded them to be just in their dealings, that be fair in your measurements. Be fair in your financial transactions. And it's important for us to note that all the previous nations, right? All the previous nations, they were destroyed because they did not bring about faith. They were destroyed because of their denial of faith. But there are two exceptions. There are two exceptions, two nations who are not only destroyed because of them not denying belief, but they're also destroyed because of their interpersonal relationships that they had amongst themselves. That their interpersonal relationships also became a reason for their destruction. The first is the qawm of Prophet Lut alayhi salam, right? The qawm Lut. And we know about their actions. Right? That their actions were one of the reasons that led to their destruction, in addition to their refusal of believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His ahkam. And the second exception that of those people who are not only destroyed just because of their disbelief, but also because of their interpersonal relations, was the Qawm of Shu'ayb alayhi salam. The Qawm of Shu'ayb alayhi salam. And you have to then see that these two tribes and their wrongful acts, their interpersonal relationships, right, the homosexuality and the unlawful financial transactions. Imagine the gravity and the hatred of these actions, such that it led those actions also became a reason for their destruction, for the destruction of the entire nation. We cannot soften up on these evils despite their prevalence in our society. We have to recognize their evil. We have to recognize that these were actions that brought about the adhab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on both of these nations, the adhab was not just of one form, it was of multiple forms. The reason why the nation of Shu'ayb would cheat people actually has very much of a resemblance to what we see today, to why people cheat today. In the Quran, Allah SWT mentions, وَإِلَى مَدْيَنَ أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ وَلَا تَنْقُصُوا الْمِكْيَالَ وَالْمِيزَانَ إِنِّي أَرَاكُمْ بِخَيْرٍ وَإِنِّي أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُمْ عَذَابَ يَوْمٍ مُحِيطٍ. Allah Ta'ala mentions the story of Shu'ayb alayhi salam, where Shu'ayb alayhi salam mentions to them that don't cheat people. He says, إِنِّي أَرَاكُمْ بِخَيْرٍ. I see that you're financially stable. Right? They did not cheat people because they're in financial need. They didn't cheat people because they were financially in difficult situations and they had to cheat in order to make money. They were financially comfortable. They just cheated because it was a habit and lifestyle. Remember the quote from Bernie Madoff? He didn't do it to support a lifestyle. He had enough money for the lifestyle. Why did he do it then? It just became habit and lifestyle. Right? It just became your nature. You just cheat people. Right? So they would do this not because they were financially in financial difficulty, rather, inni arakum bi khair. They were financially stable. Right? And if they were then blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be financially stable, then they shouldn't have deprived the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their financial dealings. Okay? Second is that we have to recognize that there is no barakah or benefit in any type of haram wealth. And you have to know that. Okay? That here, Shu'ayb alayhi salam said, وَيَا قَوْمِ أَوْفُوا الْمِكْيَالَ وَالْمِيزَانَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ وَلَا تَعْثَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ بَقِيَّةُ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ وَمَا أَنَا عَلَيْكُمْ بِحَفِيظٍ. Shu'ayb alayhi salam said, whatever is left from you, that you can earn larger amount of money through your unethical business practices, but if you employ the right business practices, you may earn lesser amount, but whatever is left with you, baqiyatullah, whatever is left with you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is better for you. Right? That there's more khair in the little that you're going to earn through halal means than the larger amount that you're going to earn through haram means. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he narrates from the Prophet ﷺ that the Prophet ﷺ said that inna riba wa in kathura aqibatuhu tasiru ila qul. That riba, it may seem as if it's growing, right? You have a certain amount of money, now you're earning interest, it seems as if the money is growing. The Prophet ﷺ says that it seems as if it's growing, it may seem like it's growing, but it's actually heading toward depravity, right? You're going to lose it. There's not going to be any barakah in that. Your money seems like it's growing, you have more and more money, and then you look at your bills and you look at your bank account and you say, where's all my money going? Where's all the money going? Why? Because there's no barakah in that wealth. Okay? And this was a concept that the Qawm of Shu'ayb didn't understand and didn't recognize. Thirdly, the nation of Shu'ayb alayhi salam had the incorrect notion or had the incorrect view that religion was only in one's ibadat, in one's acts of worship. That they had a wrong understanding of the role of religion in one's life. They thought religion was limited to the acts of worship, that it had no role in one's finances. That when it comes to finances, there's no place for religion there. Right? They said to Shu'ayb alayhi salam, قالوا يا شعيب الصلاة تأمرك أن نترك ما يعبد آباؤنا أو أن نفعل في أموالنا ما نشاء إنك لأنت الحليم الرشيد. They say that, Shu'ayb, is your prayer, your ibadah telling us that is it telling us what we need to do in our wealth, in our finances? That why is your ibadah talking about our finances? That this is separate. And unfortunately, many people in our community have a similar mindset as well, where they want to say, Mufti Sahib, Imam Sahib, Sheikh, so and so. Tell me about prayer, show me how I need to perform my Hajj, tell me, do my child's nikah and everything else, but don't tell me that my selling of lottery is problematic. Right? Don't tell me that my house on an interest-based mortgage is problematic. Don't talk to me about those things. Right? Just tell me about my salah and tell me about my fasting and do a Ramadan session on how to fast and such, but don't talk to me about my financial matters. Right? That they want that to be separate. Right? I'll give my zakat, that's fine, I'll give my zakat, but otherwise don't talk to me about my financial issues. Anyone who has studied the Sharia or read the Quran even knows that Islam puts a lot of emphasis on proper ethical financial transactions. The longest verse in the Quran, as many of you may know, is in Surah Baqarah. And that verse deals with the laws of contracts. More than 20 rulings can be derived from that ayah. It talks about documentation of details, of not leaving any ambiguity. It talks about financial ethics pertaining to minors or those who are mentally deficient. It talks about the matters pertaining to witnesses, how many witnesses, what are the qualifications of witnesses, the refusal of witnesses to testify, the safeguarding and the protection of witnesses. It talks about all these laws pertaining to the laws of contract, the longest verse in the Quran. Unlawful wealth holds no value in the Sharia. You have to understand that. Unlawful wealth holds no value in the Sharia. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu narrates from the Prophet ﷺ, he said, no man who acquires unlawful property and gives some of it in sadaqah will have it accepted from him. Neither will he receive a blessing for it if he contributes some of it. And if he leaves some of it behind, it will be his provision for hell. It comes in Tirmidhi. They're saying that somebody who's earning haram wealth is saying, I'm giving zakat. The Prophet said, that's not being accepted from you. Whatever sadaqah you're giving from that haram wealth, it is not being accepted from you. It doesn't count for you. And any of that you're leaving behind for your children and such, you're really just leaving behind for support for the hellfire. Often we restrict this understanding of unlawful wealth to just riba, right? Just to interest. That's all we think about when we talk about haram wealth, haram earnings. We think about interest. But it extends well beyond that, right? The Sharia prohibits a range of different unethical business practices, not just riba and interest, but just several different unethical business practices as well. And for that, let's take an example. You have your phone still? You've got that page up? Going to give you a different scenario. But before you start voting, just hear the scenario out. Let's say Zaid finds a great deal on a car in a different state. And he buys that car for $5,000. And then he has to pay some other transport company $500 to transport it to where he lives. Now Zaid wants to sell this car for a profit, and he finds an interested buyer, Bakr. And Bakr is interested in the car, and he asks Zaid, how much did he buy it for? So Zaid says, he bought the car for $5,500. Now Bakr agrees to the deal. They conclude the sale. Sale goes through. Are there any issues in this deal? Your options, that yes, there is a problem in this deal. Why? Because Zaid was not accurate in his cost disclosure. Or no, Zaid was accurate in his cost disclosure, there is no problem. Or that no, there is no problem in this deal because Zaid had no obligation to disclose his cost, but he voluntarily did. Or that yes, Bakr was not supposed to ask Zaid for his cost price, so there's a problem in the deal now. Is this deal okay or not? And if it is okay or if it's not okay, why is it okay or why is it not okay? I'll give you 20, 30 seconds. And I saw that the ulama and the students of knowledge were quite excited and jumping to vote on this one. Like you like the fiqh questions. Okay. The answer here is that yes, there is actually an issue in this transaction. Okay? The issue in the transaction is that Bakr asked, how much did he buy the car for, right? And he said, I bought the car for $5,500. Yes, Zayd's total cost that he incurred was $5,500. But how much did Zayd actually buy the car for? $5,000. Right? Now, I don't want to get too much into the masala itself, right? But what I want to stress is that the fuqaha were very conscious about all matters that pertain to financial transactions. They were very nuanced in even the wording. They said that you can say, my cost was $5,500, but you can't say, I bought the car for $5,500 because you didn't buy the car for $5,500. Right? And they're very nuanced in this. Yeah? People are still voting. Maybe you're changing your answers now. It's okay. You don't have to. The point is that the fuqaha are very careful about the accuracy and the truthfulness in their business transactions, their dealings. Why? Because the Abrar ibn Rafi' radiallahu anhu narrates that the Prophet said that an honest, truthful businessman will be among the prophets, sincere believers, and the shuhada, on the day of judgment. It comes in Tirmidhi. That there is a lot of importance that was placed toward being truthful and ethical in your financial transactions. And all of us are responsible for this. Right? Let's take a few examples, practical examples from our lives. None of this is meant to offend anyone, in case like you find some of that maybe resembles anything that you may be doing. But if there is something on here that resembles what you're doing, then something to think about. Now first, let's look at it from the aspect of a business person, right? Businessman or businesswoman. False demand. Okay. How many of you have used eBay? Okay. I'm sure many of you. Do you know about the concept of shell bidding on eBay? Okay. You know about shell bidding on eBay? What happens if you do it? You get kicked out, right? It's haram on eBay. Okay. What is it? I put something up on sale, let's say, right? And now I put up my phone for starting price of, or I put up my phone on sale on eBay. Now I want people to think that this is a really good deal, right? Or this is something that everyone should want or wants. So what I do is then I create 3 other accounts, and using my other accounts, I start bidding on my own product. Okay? And I'm starting to bid higher and higher and higher prices. Okay? So now you come in, or somebody else comes in and say, oh, this product seems like a lot of people are bidding on it, and it seems like it's a good deal, or that there's a lot of demand on this, for this. Okay? So now you've created a false demand, right? There wasn't a demand for it, you created that false demand. Okay? Hadith clearly mentions that you cannot do that. Okay? That's an example. Or false advertising, right? Or you have images in advertisements that are digitally touched to be deceiving. Right? How many times you go to a restaurant, you're looking at the menu, and you see that burger, right? That big, juicy, multi-layered burger, and you say, I want that, right? And then you get your order, right? And you're like, that's not the picture, right? That's not the picture. Yeah? That false advertising, right, where you're touching up images to be deceiving, or the product doesn't have the functionality that you're promising it does, right? Or that you're lying about when you have a product but you have it sold out, and now somebody's interested, and now you don't want to tell them that next shipment's going to come in 6 weeks, so you say, no, it's coming. No, you place the order, buy it, inshallah, sure, in a couple of days, a few days it'll come to you. Don't worry, inshallah, it'll come, right? Any form of lying in those type of transactions, all ethically problematic, and it's clear, right? It's not just, a person doesn't have to be a very strong, practicing Muslims. A lot of these things are actually even just everyone should know them, but Islam stresses it even more so. Right? Or not disclosing false in products. Let's say a person, his car starts to give him trouble. Something's not right. He takes it to the mechanic. And now the mechanic checks out the car and the mechanic says, well, there's some serious issues with the engine here. Right? You've got a really expensive major work coming on the car. It's going to cost a few $1,000s to fix it. So then what do? What do people do? Sell it. Right? Sell it to somebody else before I have to incur those costs. Right? Completely unethical, Islamically impermissible. Wa'athir ibn Asqa radiallahu anhu says that here the Prophet ﷺ says, comes from Ibn Majah, that if anyone sells a defective article without drawing attention to it, he will remain in Allah's anger, or it's mentioned that the angels will continue to curse him. For employees, right? Maybe the larger percentage of maybe a lot of this room falls under employees. Resumes. It's one thing to wordsmith, right? Where you're saying the truth, but you're saying in such a manner that sounds very exciting, okay? Or very grand, but it's technically true. Okay? And then there's another thing to actually then just completely make up bogus things on your resume, right? Saying, experiences and qualifications that you don't have. Right? Now the employer hires you, he's invested all this money in hiring you because your resume said you have all these skills, and now you start working and you can't do those responsibilities because you don't have that qualification, you don't have the experience. And now this employer is stuck paying you for something that you said you can do, and now you can't properly do. And if you look at the research in terms of how much it costs companies, like turnover, how expensive turnover is for companies, right? It's very expensive for a company when a person leaves to replace them. So now you have put the company in this difficult situation. Not putting in the proper time that one is being paid for is expected from them. Right? That you're supposed to be working, right? But then you're not working. You're sitting there just on Facebook for long hours, multiple hours, or that you're working from home. You've signed in and then you've just taken off, right? Or you teach, but then you come late and you leave early and you're not putting in the proper hours, right? These are all unethical actions. Right? People who travel know this. Okay? When you travel for work, right, company's not going to ask you a receipt for every single thing necessarily. So then what happens? You travel to a city, you know somebody there, you meet that person, you say, let's meet for dinner, and you have dinner together, and then when the bill comes, it says, I got this. Yeah, why do you got this? You got this because you're going to bill it to the company. Right? You take your wife on a trip with you, right? And now both of you dine out, and then you put the bill on the company's record. Company is paying for you, they're not paying for your entire khandan, right? They're not paying for your family. Okay? How is that ethical? Right? These things seem like they're small, right? Making the measurements be off a little bit, right? That may seem like it's a small action. The nation was destroyed because of that. These aren't small actions. Right? Customers can also create a false demand where they decrease the demand. Right? Eid's coming up, right? 3 sisters go Ramadan Eid shopping, right? There's a booth, okay? And then okay, there's that dress that I want, and the lady is selling it for $75. So then I have 2 of my friends. I say, okay, first you go and you say you're interested in the dress, and then when she says it's $75, you say no, $55, and she says no, you walk away. Then the second one goes and says, oh, how much for this dress? Lady says $75. You say no, $55. Lady says no, I can't do $55. You say, oh, I'm not interested. Okay? Now then you finally go, and now by this time the lady at the booth, she's thinking, hey, maybe $75 is too expensive for this. Okay? So you say how much? She says 65. Right? You say 60. So okay, right? Now you do a deal. Right? How's that ethical? Right? It's the inverse of the false demand. Right? That's not proper. Right? Stores have return policies, abusing them. Right? You bought a product, you took it home, you accidentally dropped it, it got damaged, so now you take it back to the store and say, hey, listen, I opened this thing in the box and it turns out it's damaged. Right? It wasn't damaged when you bought it. You damaged it. Right? Now you go return that to the store, right? That's abusing return policy. Right? It's called return abuse, right? And then there's different forms of, when you need to make payments and unnecessarily delaying payments and such. The point here is that unethical and unlawful business dealings and financial transactions are a serious matter. Right? They're a serious matter. They're very much pertaining to Islam. And they're explicitly mentioned in the Quran, and a prophet was sent to address that societal ill. That a prophet was sent to specifically address that societal ill of being unethical in financial transactions, in financial dealings. That nation was then also, because of not being ethical in their financial transactions, was then also destroyed by not one, not two, by three adhab. By three different adhabs were sent down on that nation because of this issue. Because of this issue, or at least this issue contributed toward that punishment. It's not a small matter. Right? These dealings have a large, massive impact on people's lives, right? At an individual level, but even potentially at a national level or beyond. Right? If you have spoken to someone who's been impacted by these type of frauds that happen and who've lost their savings, right? Speak to someone who suffered some of these losses. You understand the difficulty that you put the people through. Right? And Allah Ta'ala curses such people in the Quran. وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُم يُخْسِرُونَ أَلَا يَظُنُّ أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ لِيَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ النَّاسُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. The woe to the curtailers, woe to those people who curtail giving people their due rights. Who, when they measure something to receive from people, they take it in full, and when they measure or weigh to give it to them, they give less than its due. Do they not think that they will be raised on a great day, the day when all people will stand before the Lord of all worlds? Allah Ta'ala is saying that when you practice these unethical financial transactions, have you forgotten that you're going to be raised in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Have you forgotten that you're going to be raised in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you will be questioned for this? That you'll be questioned by Allah Ta'ala for this. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, Imam Malik narrates this in his Muwatta, that those who curtail measures and weights, right, those who cheat people from giving what is properly due to them, that Allah will cause famine to break out amongst them. Right? That this becomes a source for adhab within that community as well. That Allah Ta'ala will cause famine to break out amongst them. And it's mentioned, the ulama mentioned, that the famine could be in different ways. It could be the default understanding where there's a lack of the provisions that are needed, right? So there's an absence of food. It could be where those provisions are there, but they're beyond one's capacity to acquire. Or it could be where the sustenance is available. And this is the one that really struck me, where the sustenance is available, but the person cannot use it. Okay? Like, for example, their medical condition now doesn't allow them to use the provision that is in front of them. Right? People I know, right, because of different medical conditions where they're limited to how much water they can drink. Right? Where they say, my throat's all dry, but medically I'm only allowed to drink this much water. Right? People then who have restrictions on different type of foods and such. Right? Right? The ulama mentioned that could also fall within this, where it's not famine in what the people think in terms of like the absence of the provisions, but that the provision is there, but you are unable to use it. And although this curtailing applies in financial transactions, it is not limited to it. Right? Imam Malik rahimahullah reports in his Muwatta that Umar radiallahu anhu saw a person cutting his ruku and sujood short. Right? That a person was praying, but he wasn't doing sufficient ruku. He wasn't staying in ruku for long enough. He wasn't staying in sajda for long enough. So Umar radiallahu anhu told him, لَقَدْ طَفَّفْتَ. Okay? The same word as وَيْلُ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ that we just talked about. Right? That you have curtailed the rights. That you have curtailed the rights. And Imam Malik, he then says, لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَفَاءٌ وَتَطْفِيفٌ. That the fulfillment and the curtailing of due rights applies in everything. That it's not just in financial transactions, it applies in everything. And in Mufti Shafi, Sahib rahimahullah, he mentions that this can apply in wudu, in salah, in all forms of ibadah that a person does. That what if a person stands up and he prays but he didn't do wudu properly, or he stands up in prayer but his mind isn't there, he's not praying according to the proper sunnahs and such, that this is also the tatfif, this is also the curtailing of the due rights, because that wasn't the due right that you had to give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You curtailed the rights. You didn't perform the salah like it was meant to be performed. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah ta'ala gives us the taqwa, so all of our affairs are guided through fear of disobeying Him and through the hope of achieving His pleasure, and that Allah Ta'ala give us the proper knowledge about what is lawful and what is ethical in terms of financial transactions, and that Allah Ta'ala gives us the tawfiq to implement that, to act upon our knowledge, and to safeguard us from all forms of corruption and in curtailing people's rights, and also curtailing the rights of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala as well. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You pointed out so many diseases of heart. May Allah give you reward to correct. May Allah make us do correction.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, that's fine, inshallah. Jazakullahu Khairun, Mufti Abrar, for his presentation. Next on the program is a panel. We will have a panel of students who will be sharing their different experiences here at Darus Salam. While we set up the stage here, if all the brothers just want to stand up and stretch in their place, please try not to go out, because then it's hard to rejoin again. So maybe just stand up here, stretch out a little bit, get some blood flow going, and we'll have a short panel of students here who will share their different experiences, students from different backgrounds, different ages. And inshallah they might be able to take some questions. So just stretch out and we'll rejoin in about 2 minutes maximum. 2 minutes. Jazakumullah.
Use the box. Use the box.